And a good afternoon to you. This is Cards Hub 365, powered by Gray Bar. Joe Roderick, Mike Claiborne with you after a Cardinals 3-2 spring training loss. But as it will be for most of the spring training, we really don't care about the wins and losses and what the final scores of the games are. There's a lot of stuff within the game that we are going to talk about here on Cards Hub 365. Here on Sports Hub STL. Claibs, you did not make the trip over to the Blue Jays facilities today, over to the west coast of Florida, but you were locked in on the game today. Quinn Mathews got the start, and if you scrolled through social media or you watched the game and saw the highlights, it's hard to not be impressed with what Quinn Mathews did today on the mound.
Yeah, he went 2 innings, had 3 strikeouts, had a walk, looked like he had command of the mound. And I think that's what people are starting to look at. He pitches like he's supposed to be here. Now, obviously, he's going to be in the conversation at some point later in the year. But I think he's gotten off to a good start. Yes, today he was solid. And he faced a pretty good lineup. The Blue Jays didn't send out Scribinis today. They sent out a pretty formidable lineup, especially at the top. And the way he handled the top, I thought was commendable. Again, it's early, but you'd rather have pluses in this situation on the road against a team that, as I mentioned, put out a good lineup compared to getting your brains beat in and just saying, we'll go get them tomorrow.
Yeah, absolutely. You're welcome to join in on the YouTube chat as Jeff did, wishing us a good afternoon. Your thoughts, welcome on the game, what you liked out of Quinn Mathews, what else you saw today in the game that you liked. And Claibs, as you mentioned yesterday, not a whole lot of these guys are going to make the trip over to the West Coast of this. A lot of guys you saw play today, you might see them play again tomorrow when they're in Tampa. Chance for these guys to play those back-to-backs, as Ali Marmol talked about the fact that these guys need to play baseball. They're getting them out there. They're getting them to play baseball. You're seeing some teams that have guys that have that designated March 1st start day, not the Cardinals. Everybody, I think, has played so far. As far as I know, nobody has missed every game, right?
I would think you're right. Especially with these 2 games on the road, that way you get a chance to see the kids a little bit more. And as I like to call them, 2026, 2027ers. I don't know how many of these guys are going to move that, ascend that quickly within the organization, especially when you have a log jam at certain positions already. But it's good to just have back-to-back days, I would think, more than anything else. And one of the things I want to ask Ali about when they come back is the process of making sure that when that date comes, how many guys can you get in as regulars? How many guys can you get in as far as innings and at bats? Because I think it's important to be in the field as well as being at the plate. So we'll see some of these guys start to fall off, and then you'll see some other guys start to get more playing time. It's one of the real, I think, intriguing challenges of spring training and how to put a spring training together. It's not just throwing guys out there. Everybody goes out there with a purpose.
Before we get into Victor Scott, who I know we kind of threw up there as a guy that's going to lead our discussion today, just final thoughts on Quinn Mathews. I know folks, they love to talk about the prospects. They love to talk about when we're going to see guys. Quinn Mathews was a guy who we saw really, it's unheard of the way that he just went through every single level of the Cardinals minor league last year and ended up in AAA to end the season. There was talk of maybe seeing him here in St. Louis in September. Never happened. But right now, if you had to handicap it, where is Quinn Mathews going to be playing at the beginning of the season?
Memphis.
Okay. Stretch him out as a starter, or?
Yeah. I think here's 2 things you have to take into account. Quinn Mathews is not an 18, 19-year-old kid. This guy, he played at Stanford, so he's a little further ahead on the curve. So to have him working in Springfield, I don't know, does him any good, because Springfield might as well be the Pac-12. So you want to have a guy who's getting quality opportunities and seeing how far he can go into games. I think that's important also. So I think you'll probably see him in Memphis. He'll probably be a front-end guy. On who's behind him, I think that's still up for grabs. But he still has to go out and show. He threw 2 innings today. What's he look like after 4 innings? And maybe he gets to 5 while he's here. And then at that point, when he goes to Memphis, then they try and see if they can get him to 7. But I think he starts in Memphis.
What would have to happen in your eyes for Quinn Mathews to be up here in St. Louis at the start of the season? Would it be something really good, or would it be something really bad? So even if he is if he's lights out,
a catastrophe.
Down, okay.
A catastrophe.
There is nothing in your eyes that he could do to earn an opening day roster spot.
No. I think there's just too many hurdles for him to overcome with regard to other people having to just blow up or get hurt. I just don't see that unless, again, a catastrophe.
Cardinals,
as much as people want to see him, Joe, and I understand what you're saying, we all get enamored with these guys, and I don't want to say phenom because I don't think he was ever considered one, except for people who'd never seen him before. In the video that they saw him, he was striking people out. He looked very effective. We have to hold our horses here and let him grow into the job. And I know some people might say, well, he's better than such and such. And he might be, but right now he's not. We saw 2 innings in a spring training season that's not a week old. So again, let's just hold our horses a little bit and just see how he progresses before we start making him a guy that's jumping out of the truck and being a second-day starter in the big leagues.
This is Cards Hub at 365 on Sports Hub STL. It's powered by Gray Bar, and if you're still suffering from supply chain issues and they're disrupting your operations, have no fear. Gray Bar has you covered, and you can rely on their nationwide logistics network to get what you need, where they need, when they need to get there, and all within budget. Gray Bar, a trusted and leading North American distributor of electrical communications, data networking, and industrial products. Gray Bar literally supports products of any industry: construction, hospitals, industrial plants, schooling. It doesn't matter. They have just one clear mission: to serve as that vital link in the supply chain, adding value for customers and suppliers with innovative solutions and services. Visit graybar.com to start an order today. That's graybar.com, and fix those supply chain issues with Gray Bar. Claibs, the Cardinals on the day lose 3-2. They have 2 hits. I'm sorry, Victor Scott has 2 hits. The rest of the Cardinal lineup did absolutely nothing today. Victor Scott homered and he tripled. He is a guy who is fighting for a roster spot on opening day, and one of those guys, a handful of him, Siani, Burleson, kind of log jammed and kind of fighting for a roster spot with Nolan Arenado being here on the team still.
It was a good start for Victor Scott. He already had a hit in his first outing that he had a chance to play in. So, Ali keeps it pretty simple. You hit, you play. Plain and simple. I think we can trust his defense. He took advantage. He hit a pretty good pitcher today. And so let's see where it goes from here. And I think, Joe, we talked about previously, I'm looking forward to seeing guys play back-to-back, seeing guys face better pitching early on, seeing guys who maybe throw breaking balls. A lot of guys look good at this time of the year, hitting fastballs, and that's good. You're catching up to it. But let's face it, guys who are young, who are trying to forge their way through a career, have trouble hitting the breaking ball. And I was talking to someone yesterday about a prospect. Said, yeah, you know what? He can turn fastball around, but that breaking ball gives him so much trouble that you might want to think about converting positions. I'm not saying that about Victor Scott, but the fact that he's getting off to that start that he would like to get off to is a good sign. Now let's see what he does the next time out. Now let's see what he does with 3 at-bats. Let's see what he does with a guy who's throwing a changeup or maybe throwing a breaking ball. Let's see what he can do as far as putting the ball on the ground or hitting line drives compared to trying to hit home runs. And it's funny, earlier today, Randy posed a question when I was visiting with him about the fact, can you stress him not hitting home runs? I personally think Victor Scott has more power than Mason Wynn. And Mason Wynn hit 15 home runs last year.
Really?
Yeah. I really do. Victor Scott is a very strong individual. Don't let his size fool you.
Now, when Randy, I think, posed that question this morning, and I think the same thing might be with Mason Wynn, these are guys who have a crazy amount of speed that they utilize to their benefit when they're playing defense, when they're out on the bases. And I think it's more of an issue of, maybe play within yourself, kind of go for the gaps, go for doubles, triples type thing,
no, I
rather
agree
than just trying to swing out of your shoes and risk striking out.
Well, but here's the thing. When I saw Mason Wynn hit 15 home runs last year, Mason Wynn has a quick bat. And he saw some pitches early that he was able to jump on. Plus, he was the best 2-strike hitter team had. Mm-hmm. With Victor Scott, I think he's a guy who can mug a guy too. I think the question is, does he get that opportunity? And it depends basically on where you're hitting in the order also. If you're hitting 8th or 9th, you may see a different pitch selection. Yeah. But to your point, I think it's safe to say that Victor Scott's not going to be the next Ricky Henderson, or at least he doesn't shape up to be that guy as far as hitting home runs early in ball games. Victor Scott makes a living hitting gaps. Victor Scott makes a living finding the middle of the field where he can really run. And, you mentioned the fact that he's quick. He's the fastest guy in the organization. Okay, it's not even close. Mason
he's up there as far as all of MLB, right? I mean, there's
a couple other guys that can pick him up and lay him down too. But he's certainly in that conversation. The reason why he's not in that conversation as much is because he spent a majority of the season in the minors. Mm-hmm. But if you put him out there on first base and somebody hits one in the gap, Victor Scott's probably going to score from home standing up. There's a couple other guys out there that are fast, but Victor Scott's going to be in that conversation if he's on the roster and he plays on a regular basis.
You also, when you were on earlier today with Randy and Brooke, you talked about the center field position. You talked about, kind of the ranking, the depth chart of that. And with Arenado here, it does seem like all signs are pointing towards Lars Nootbaar being that opening day center fielder. With everything else kind of lining up the way it is, here we sit on February 25th. What does Victor Scott have to do to work his way into that mix, to give Ollie something to think about? As I guess Michael Ciani too is in the same category. What do those two have to do? What do you need to see out of them for them to make Ollie sit down and think, okay, you know what, maybe my best option is one of these two in center field and Lars ends up somewhere else?
Well, I think they just have to play. They have to produce. They have to hit. I'm not worried about their defense. I think the way these guys get in the lineup is they have to hit. And it's going to come down to individual matchups too. Lars Nootbaar has an early reputation of being able to get on base. Now, what does that look like over 145, 150 game season for him? Well, I don't know because we haven't seen it yet. Does that level off at some point? I don't, that's a question. With Scott and Ciani, man, you know what? That's a pretty good. If you have Lars Nootbaar in center field, if you really feel you have to put him in center field, and there's a day maybe, and the problem is all these guys hit left-handed. So now you have to look at individual matchups. Is this guy going to be better? Is Victor Scott going to be better against a ground ball pitcher compared to Michael Ciani? Is Victor Scott a guy that maybe you want to stay away from against certain right-handers or certain left-handers? So this is where the analytics comes into play, where they're going to have to really crunch numbers and find the appropriate matchup for all three of these guys. And also, what do you look like beyond the 7th inning if you want defense? You can realistically play all three of them in the outfield late in the ball game, depending on the situation. So there's going to be a lot of, from where I sit, a lot of mixing and matching, probably a little bit more than maybe Ollie would like. But in order to utilize your roster and give you the best chance to win, there are going to be some things you'll do that maybe you wouldn't do later in a game, but you might do just to make sure you want to protect the lead.
If Lars Nootbaar ends up, if all things stay the same, if Lars Nootbaar does start in center field, is that a situation where you want him to be in center field every time that he's in the lineup and you're not? No. Because you do get what I'm saying, where it's if you start Victor Scott or Michael Ciani, do you put them in center and then that day Lars plays left? Something like that, to where you're moving Lars back and forth.
I think you can move them all around.
Positions.
I think everybody who walks out there with a glove, with the exception of Jordan Walker, has to be able to play more than one position. He's got to be able to play all three. And I think, with the exception of Brendan Donovan, I think Brendan Donovan is relegated to left field. But between Scott Ciani and Luke Newbar, they have to be able to play all three positions.
Yeah. In the chat, Damian chiming in, where are you getting that Newt is starting in center field? Who has said that? The organization has said that. It's been pretty clear that.
Well, maybe Damian's been gone for a while.
Yeah.
Okay. That's what it's been said going into spring training. That's where they look at him playing a bulk of the season.
Provided if Nolan Arenado is here. And that's
right.
Yes.
Now, if Arenado's not here, we have a whole new game.
Yes.
We have a whole new game with regard to who plays. Now, here's the elephant in the room. Arenado is no longer here, so you give Nolan Gorman those at-bats from third base. Nolan Gorman's got to play. He's got to play well. He's got to hit in order to justify being there. Would you not agree?
Right. No, he struck out today. We saw a strikeout today. I know it's one in spring training.
But he also walked. So let's play that down the middle. He also walked. So good eye, bad eye, I don't know. I mean, he's still trying to figure it out, and that's what spring training is for. So he's going to be given ample opportunities to get quality at bats. I think the thing we have to take into account, Nolan Gorman has not played very, very much third base in the big leagues, and we don't know what that looks like.
Right.
We don't know what that looks like. We don't know whether he can pick it. We don't know if he has the arm strength. There's a lot of things about him that we just don't know playing second base.
And
third base.
Right. We saw him a little bit. I think it was last year or the year before we saw him play a little bit there. And
not enough to say, oh yeah, he's the answer.
Right. To be fair, Nolan Gorman also struck out today facing Max Scherzer, who this year is going to pass 3,500 career strikeouts. He's got 3,400 on the year. So
what you're saying is Nolan Gorman is not going to be by himself as far as being victims, whether it's exhibition or when the season starts.
Yeah, Scherzer struck out a few in his day, Hall of Famers and many others along his career. So
I would say this, that if you and I had a chance to face Max Scherzer, we would be in the category with Nolan Gorman today of being able to say, yeah, he got me too.
Think you'd foul one off against him?
Chance against him as Nolan Gorman did.
You think you'd foul one off? How old is Scherzer right now? He's 40 years old.
Old enough to get me out.
I just asked if you'd foul one off.
If he let me. If he liked me, maybe he would.
You just sit first pitch. You sit first pitch fastball and you hope you tip it. That's
so. Let me tell you. So here's something. So here's the deal. We have when I would go to Cardinal Fantasy Camp, they had this one segment. So it would be called "So You Think You Can Hit a Big Leaguer." So every team of the fantasy camp teams had a chance to face a former major league pitcher. And my own internal strategy is I'm not going to lead off. I'm going to hit last or next to last. And so there was a guy who was kind of thinking along with me. And he said, I know what you're thinking, and I want to hit last too. So we flipped the coin, and he ended up going last. I went next to last. And Kyle McClellan was our pitcher. And I'd seen Mac from the day he joined the Cardinals. So I knew what he had. I knew what he was going to try and do. And I went up there early, and I knew Mac, he loved showing that curveball off. And he hung one, and I pulled it foul. And he looked at me, and I looked at him, and I knew he was going to bear down. And so it was a good at bat. He finally got me. I fouled a couple of pitches off. He threw one that he thought I was going to chase, and I didn't. But it was a reminder to all of us who sit at home and think we can do this. Mm-hmm. Can't do it.
I've had this conversation with Izzy a few times that I've told him I want to step in the box with him.
You have no chance.
This started about 6, 7, 8 years ago when we talked about me stepping in the box with him. Izzy's 52 now, so I think as I play the waiting game,
Izzy could be 62 and you still wouldn't have a chance.
Set it up one time. We'll make it into a Sports Hub STL event.
I'm not going to waste his time or mine or yours. If you think you can do it, you set it up with him, and I'll know the results. And maybe he'll let you file one off because you've been begging him for so long to do this.
He's 52. I'm taking my chances against him. I'm taking my chances against Izzy. Hey, before we get out of here today, Claibs, we saw the ABS system used again. Yeah. I know we talked about it at length yesterday. A few questions that I think some of the viewers might have as they watch the games for this. There was a play, and I can't remember the exact situation of it, but there was a pitch late in the game. I think it was around the 7th inning. That it was, I think it was Bedell. I think when Bedell walked a guy, and the pitch looked really good. It
from
looked
where
like
you
it
sat.
was from where I sat. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
And again, being there on the field, it might have looked a lot different. But has Ollie talked about?
Everybody has the green light.
Everybody does.
Everybody has a green light. I think, and this may be one of the reasons. 2 reasons. Maybe that ball had such late action on it that the guy was indecisive in asking for another look, or he might have just been tracking pitches at that point, just seeing what it looked like coming out of a guy's hand, because they can go back afterwards and look at it, after the game or, after the at bat. There are only 3 people that can call for it: the pitcher, the catcher, the batter. You can't get any help from the dugout. You can't get any help from a fielder. Those are the only ones that can do it, and they have to do it like that.
Right. Because, you have with the technology today, you have guys sitting on the bench with tablets looking at it. I mean,
but the tablets are in delay. No. The tablets are in delay, so you can't even use that.
Okay.
So the only way you do it is on gut, and my feeling is that guy in the batter's box and in the catcher's box has a better look at the pitch than you do sitting in the dugout.
One of the we did see late in the game today when Hellman had his when his at bat, and one of the new Cardinals, Michael Hellman, and there were 2 outs in the inning. Pitch goes down, called strike 3. FanDuel Sports Midwest, they're playing the music, they're heading to break. Pitcher's walking off the field. All of a sudden, you hear him say, "Whoa, hold on." They're calling for it, and sure enough, it was a ball. So they go back out there and they have to play it. So a few pitches later, again, looked like there was one. Hellman called strike 3. He just walked off. Do you think there's some players that maybe they want to see what the system's like and see if they were right on one, to where maybe they don't care as much? Okay, you know what? I knew that one was right. I tested the system; it worked. All right, hey, I got that one. You know what? I'm not going to waste the time here. We're just going to keep it moving along.
I think what it says, Joe, is everybody needs to pay closer attention, from the TV truck to the radio broadcasters. The assumption level has been reduced dramatically, and we talked a little bit about this yesterday. Assuming because it's ball 3 that the next pitch is going to be an automatic strike, that's no longer in play, and that will depend on the hitter. And I think the catcher probably would call more appeals or more looks than the pitcher. The pitcher's ego will be in play there. I think catchers have a more sense of reality, seeing where the late action on a pitch might go.
Yeah.
And it's something, obviously, here's the other thing that comes into play. The guys who played in the minor leagues last year, they have a better comfort level of how this works than a guy who's a 10-year veteran.
Yeah.
So
that would be, and as you mentioned earlier, the guys on the broadcast too, your engineer back at the studio on the radio of it, they're going to have to be listening or having the game on the TV, paying close attention to some of those, so you guys aren't throwing to break and coming back. And it's so quick though. It moves really fast that you do have to kind of know if the opportunity is going to be there for a challenge or not.
The average last year in the minors was, as far as length of game, it added 17 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not something that's going to, oh my God, this is going to take. No, it's not going to take forever. It's not going to take forever. And it's amazing. how we go back and forth. And I think it's going to be interesting to see who has the real eye. And that guy who saw this in the minor leagues, he has an advantage on understanding it. But that guy in the minor leagues probably hasn't seen some of the pitches he's going to see in the big leagues. So it's a learning process for everyone. But I stress patience on that pitch, on every pitch. It's not an automatic anymore. And as I said to you earlier, from where you sit, because as they've tried to calibrate the angles of where the pitches are, you don't have the box anymore.
Right.
So what you thought looks like a good pitch from where you sit, the way it's calibrated now, it's going to be different. It's going to be different. And I think we all have to show some patience here and let this thing play itself out.
Before we get out of here, I want to remind everybody the Sports Hub STL kickoff party is coming your way on Thursday at the Hot Shots on Lindbergh in Lime. Come meet the team and enjoy great food and drink specials. The party starts at 6 o'clock as the Blues game starts against Washington. Ovechkin 13 goals away from breaking the record. We'll watch the game, have great prize giveaways, and the Blues Hub post-game show will broadcast live after the game. Also, 2 lucky Blues fans that night, and a few of their friends will win the very first Sports Hub STL St. Louis experience, which will include watching a Blues road game at a private party with Blues alum and Sports Hub STL staff. If you want to win, come on out to the Sports Hub STL kickoff party this Thursday night at the new Hot Shots on Lindbergh in Lime. Hot Shots, St. Louis's home for all the games, all the time since 1990. Find yours at hotshotsnet.com. Claibs, Brendan Schaefer back tomorrow. You will not be on the Cards Hub 365 show, but I believe is Tink Hence getting the start tomorrow or just pitching in the game tomorrow?
I think he's pitching tomorrow. Gosh, I saw the starter and it escapes me now, but he's scheduled to pitch over there tomorrow against the Yankees. And I talked to him yesterday about how things are working for him. And he's in that process, like a lot of pitchers, of trying to find consistency, where he said, man, my slider was really working. He said, I threw a couple of them and I threw a couple of change-ups. They really seemed to work. And he said, just when I thought I had it going, I throw that same pitch and I'd hook it. I'd throw it. And you know what it comes down? It's just trying to be perfect. And, and I don't care what level you're in. It's like being on a golf tee and you hit a great drive and you did it just the way you wanted to. And then the next time you go up, you want to do the same thing. And then you want to hit it harder or you quicker. And sometimes with pitchers, they'll jerk that pitch and all of a sudden, they bury it compared to just letting it come out of their hands. So it's a learning process. But I think the key for him is knowing what he's doing compared to wondering, what am I doing? There's a big difference. And that, I think that shows the growth in him now, knowing what he's doing and now knowing how to address that. And that's more of a mental thing than a physical thing. And I'm looking forward to seeing him do well tomorrow because I think that's another guy that's going to be in the conversation. He just needs innings. That's all he needs is innings, much like Quinn Mathews. They need innings and they need quality innings. And, it's good to know that you have these guys who are close to being ready to step on the mound in the big leagues. Not, as you mentioned, as I said earlier, for Mathews to be part of opening day would have to be a catastrophe of injury and just dreadful performance for him to be there. And I don't want to wish that on anybody. There'll be time for him to get here because I'm of the belief, if you're going to call these kids, make sure they're here to stay. Let's not get them on that shuttle because some guys don't handle that well.
Looking forward to seeing him pitch tomorrow. Looking forward to seeing what the lineup looks like tomorrow and what guys are going to be playing back-to-back games out there in Tampa. We will come your way after the game is over, myself and Brendan Schaefer right here on Cards Hub 365. We have a lot of post-game shows tonight. You have SLU Billikens, Blues hockey, and Mizzou basketball all tonight, and we'll have post-game shows after all of those right here on Sports Hub STL. For Mike Claiborne, I'm Joe Roderick. We will talk to you next time